Let it go, let it go. Hillary Clinton can't let 2016 go. The people's pantsuit, perhaps trying to drum up some more pity for her failed presidential bid, claiming Trump winning in 2024 would be, quote, the end of democracy.
Trump wins, which I do not believe will happen. Let me just quickly say that. If in some scenario that were to happen, it would be the end of democracy in the United States.
People voting for someone you don't like is not the end of democracy. It's democracy in action. She didn't think he was going to win in 2016 either, but look where that got her. So are Hillary's words basically confirmation that Trump's heading back to the White House? It's prophecy. Let's ask tonight's party panel. We've got Independent Women's Forum senior policy analyst Inez Stepman is back, along with co-founder of Base Politics, Brad Palumbo, and director of the Libertarian Institute and editorial director at antiwar.com, Scott Horton. Scott, I'm going to let you tee this up because Hillary Clinton is not a good person, but I did not know that Bill Clinton has a nickname for her. What is that nickname?
Yeah, he calls her the Warden because he hates her as much as we do. And, you know, now that you played that clip out loud, I take that in a little bit different context. I think maybe that was a threat. That she was just saying, unlike, you know, their sort of failed half-a-coup attempt framing Trump for treason like they did last time, that she's saying, no, the CIA will just go ahead and stop holding elections and just choose and coronate her or somebody else as our president instead. But, you know, this lady, to hear her hector anyone about democracy, when the reason she lost that election is because she cheated. And it's in the Podesta emails that she promoted what they call the Pied Piper strategy. So to ask her friends in the media to support and boost Donald Trump because he'll be the easiest to beat in the fall. And cheaters never win. And then what'd she do? She tried to frame him for treason with Russia, which everyone should really read that Durham report. It shows that the Clinton campaign was behind it all in the first place. So she's the biggest cheat in politics since JFK stole Illinois in 1960. Yeah. So to hear her talk like that is just completely ridiculous. Oh, and one more thing. She said the threat is Trump will get us out of NATO. I wish that was true. The guy's far more W. Bush than Ron Paul. We already saw him in there for 4 years.
Yeah, he just wants more people to pony up, but he doesn't, you're absolutely right about that. He doesn't want to end NATO. So what is Hillary doing here, Brad? See, I postulated on the 5 that she's actually running for vice president because she knows she's going to outlive Joe Biden, and then she can serve out the rest of his second term and then run again on her own. What do you think she's doing, Brad?
Look, I think Hillary Clinton's just doing the typical fearmonger thing here the Democrats do all the time, and really she just needs to take a Xanax. If Trump wins, which I don't think is likely, but if he does, it would not be the end of democracy. We already had him as president once, and the sky did not fall. I do think that what he did in 2020, denying the results baselessly and trying to overturn them, was a threat to democracy, absolutely. But him running again and getting elected wouldn't continue that threat. It would do the opposite. It's also a bit rich coming from Hillary because she ran around for years talking about how Trump was an illegitimate president and the Russians interfered in 2016. She didn't exactly accept the results gracefully. In fact, she embraced her own form of anti-democracy denialism. So I just think the idea that either party, I mean, the Democrats literally funded election-denying Republicans in the last midterm race. The idea that either major party has a sincere commitment to democratic values beyond when it actually just aligns with their partisan interests, yeah, color me skeptical.
I tend to agree with that, Inez, because Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump essentially did the same thing. They denied the results of the election, but they were still election results that didn't go in their favor. So I don't think democracy is going to die, but I do think there's something to what Scott said. And I think what the media is doing is trying to take down DeSantis as hard as they possibly can because he poses a bigger threat in the general election than Trump does. And, you know, they're boosting Trump and some of those poll numbers.
Well, first of all, I'm kind of skeptical of the idea that anybody knows which one of them will be a better general election candidate. I think it'd be foolish to assume that either one of them couldn't win this election. So, because I mean, we got a big surprise in 2016. It was a very close race in 2020. All that is required is 30,000 votes between several different states. So I think it would be foolish to imagine that Donald Trump cannot win again. Obviously, it's ridiculous to say that if the United States takes a different foreign policy posture, if somebody's elected to take that different foreign policy posture, that it's the end of democracy. I mean, I'm starting to think that these people, when they're talking about, quote unquote, our democracy, are speaking literally about, they think that the democracy is theirs. And yes, I really don't take it well, this kind of comments about norm breaking and our democracy from people who are quite willing to break very important norms of liberal democracy, like, I don't know, just off the top of my head, not prosecuting and persecuting your domestic political opposition when they leave power.
Are you talking about Hillary?
No, I'm saying Donald Trump, all of these cases against Donald Trump, right? Not to mention all of the sort of administrative state actions that were taken while he was in president. For example, going around the elected president to have a high-level general discuss, foreign policy with China in a way that was completely avoiding looping in the elected president of the United States. Those are serious, quote-unquote, norm-breaking things in a liberal democracy, like civilian control of the military. That's a real norm-breaking. That's a real threat
hey, ma'am,
to
that's what you
democracy.
get with establishmentarians like Milley and Biden and Hillary Clinton. So that's what you're voting for. They're terrible people. Well, speaking of terrible speakers, it's graduation season. Commencement guests across the country are struggling to connect with students because they're a bunch of babies. Folks from Virginia, where Governor Glenn Youngkin, he spoke to Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav. They've been heckled and protested by students who don't agree with their political views. Aside from Governor Youngkin, a new study shows graduation speakers are almost always liberal because no one wants the protests. Clearly, they need some help on what to say to recent graduates. Fortunately, I hit the streets to find out what the class of 2023 really needs to know. Watch. What advice do you have for people graduating from college?
Sorry, thank you.
You can tell them. They'll be happy to hear it from you. You look very trustworthy.
My advice would be that things might not work out the way that you think that they're going to, but to have resilience, trust in the process, focus on the process rather than the result, and then things will work out.
What advice do you have for people graduating from college?
Get a job.
While you are in school, get jobs as internships and whatever you want to get into.
I'm a fan of internships as well. I think that's great because it's like a buffet. You take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, make some connections.
Yes.
If you really prove yourself, they'll want you to come back.
Absolutely.
Get into trades and get into
trades. That's the best advice you could give someone.
Yes.
Be a plumber,
Yes.
be a pipe fitter,
Yes.
be a welder,
Yes.
learn to build houses,
Yes.
all of those things.
Yes.
He is absolutely right about that.
Yes.
That is the golden advice of the day.
Yes.
Well said. Don't worry about college till you're an adult. Until then, just read books and go to trade school. So what does our panel have in terms of advice for new grads heading out into the world, Scott?
Oh, well, my advice would be forget all this stuff you learned in government school, and I mean higher education, so-called, about communism being the solution to what's wrong with America now. America is a corrupt, crony capitalist system, but the opposite of that is libertarianism. It's true free markets and peace. And so all of this stuff about giving government more and more control over the economy as a solution to how corrupt it is doesn't make much sense if you think about it. Read some Rothbard and get your head straight.
Oh, I love it. Brad?
Young man.
Get your head straight, young man.
Yeah, look, I think college students these days really need to reject the toxic and divisive identity politics that they're spoon-fed at these universities. And the best example of that is the push we've seen to have self-segregated graduation ceremonies for Black students, for LGBT students. I mean, my college a few years ago had a rainbow graduation for LGBTQIA2 plus whatever students. And as a gay person, I really wanted nothing to do with that. I mean, they're just accentuating the divides between the groups and further inflaming these tensions. And that's the ideology that's being pushed on many college campuses, not all, but many. And really, the essence of Americanism is about assimilation, about what we have in common. And I dream of an America where these things about us that we can't change are treated like eye color, are largely irrelevant. But that's the opposite of what students are being taught on many college campuses. So I think they need to reject that toxic brand of identity-fueled old politics.
Yeah, it really is separating people. And I mean, how are we ever supposed to get over our political divides if we're being segregated like this?
Well, we're not going to. And if you look at poll numbers for millennials and Gen Z, you see that majorities believe this is a racist nation. In fact, indoctrination works, kindergarten all the way through university, it works. It's not stopping at the campus gate, right? It's going into every single institution. But in terms of advice for college grads, new college grads, I would say don't see family and career as oppositional. Don't fall for this sort of life script that is very atomizing and creates a lot of lonely people, that your 20s are just for you for being selfish. Be open to the idea that family and career are actually two things that can be held in balance with each other, not oppositional.
I agree completely. And I think the sooner you figure that out, the happier you are. And you also realize that your life has much more flexibility than you think it does when you're in your 20s. And, you can't help it. You haven't had that many at-bats. But once you have a few more, you realize that when you can integrate things, that is very freeing. And, don't give in to a system that is imposed upon you, because that is oppression and that is antithetical to freedom, which is the ultimate goal. Party panel, thanks so much, Inez, Brad, and Scott. Beautifully done. Beautiful. Taste the
Thanks, Kennedy.
Yeah.